This event is sponsored by Miro. Miro is the online whiteboard platform where product teams can work together effectively. If you don't know where to start, it's packed with over 50 templates for product teams. Whether you need a Kanban, mind map, retrospective, product roadmap, or user story map, we've got you covered. Try it for free.
All right, we're ready to start. This session is about finding product market fit and knowing when to pivot. So in today's agenda, I'll just be talking about product market fit, and this kind of topic is specifically interesting to product managers in early stage startups, or more specifically, early stage startup founders. And I'll be talking about what product market fit is and why it's important, how to measure it, how to actually get to that achieve product market fit and get to that inflection point, and if things are not working out, when to pivot and when to reposition in order to quickly get to product market fit. And then I'll talk about a case study about a startup that I co-founded. It's a company called FX Labs, and we went through the exercise of actually trying to achieve product market fit, and we iterated a few times on the product until we kind of found something that sticks and got decent traction, and we actually were able to achieve that kind of milestone. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a product. I've been doing product management for more than 15 years. I'm currently a product management leader at Cruise. I'm driving the development of all the infrastructure services that are underpinning the autonomous vehicles at the company. And before that, I've been a serial entrepreneur. I founded a couple of companies and led one of them, a company called DCHQ, which was in the cloud automation and orchestration space, to a successful acquisition by Hypergrid. And at Hypergrid, I continued to be a VP of product, where I helped scale the team and helped kind of move the product into becoming a visionary in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for cloud management platforms. And before that, I held product management positions at VMware and Oracle, and my areas of expertise are in cloud automation and management, container orchestration, cybersecurity, application performance monitoring, and I've helped a lot of different companies of all sizes. Obviously, when I was an early stage startup founder, we kind of focused on the small to medium sized kind of businesses, but being at bigger companies like VMware and Oracle gave me the opportunity to work with some of the largest Fortune 500 companies, and I helped kind of solve their critical needs around DevOps, SecOps, and IT Ops. So let's talk about product market fit. So product market fit is that inflection point where a product kind of moves from the introduction stage to actually getting into the growth stage, where basically, you know, the hockey stick growth is just about to happen, right? And you know, different people have different opinions of what product market fit is, depending on your actual sort of product, whether it's a SaaS product or consumer-facing product or enterprise product, and what that actually means. Mark Andreessen kind of summarized this as, you know, market product fit is just being overwhelmed with usage, usually to the point where you can't even make any kind of changes to your product because you're just swamped with keeping it up and running. So you're basically overwhelmed with the amount of demand and usage of your product, and that's pretty much a sign that you've kind of moved into the growth stage and you're just about to get into that hockey stick kind of a growth phase. So why is it important? It's important because if you are an early stage startup founder or entrepreneur, or if you're a product manager for an early stage startup, it's important to know that the time to get to product market fit is the most critical time. And if you don't get to product market fit, then unfortunately, there's a very, very high probability that the entire company may actually cease to exist. So this was a McKinsey study from back in 2014 where they kind of analyzed a bunch of companies, and basically their conclusion is a software company that's not growing or that grows at 20% annually has a 92% chance of ceasing to exist, right? So 20% annual growth is something that is extremely high for very huge established companies, but for early stage startups, that the expectation is that you're growing at a much, much faster rate. And if you're not able to get to that hockey stick growth, that there's a very high chance that your company may not exist. And the reason that the company may not exist is simply because of it's a cash flow problem, right? So in that slide, I kind of show kind of the inflection point of product market fit, and you'll see that bell curve being like the sales curve being representing the sales of the company, and of course, product market fit is the inflection to kind of indicate the beginning of that hockey stick growth. But during that time, your cash flow you're basically cash flow negative. You're in the valley of death for cash flow, right? So you're spending so much money before even getting to product market fit or even introducing the product, building the product, and you're just asking investors for more and more money. And the only way you can make up for that money lost or start making more cash is actually by having that growth trajectory. And if not, then unfortunately, you'll become a company that's always starving for more and more cash and not getting to a point where you're cash flow positive. So crossing the chasm is something that's been talked about in the industry to actually achieve product market fit. And as you can see, is from Jeffrey Moore's famous book called Crossing the Chasm. You basically need to convince like the innovators and then the early adopters with your product, and that's where you kind of get your early signs of traction. And then you achieve product market fit when you start getting the early majority, right? These are the pragmatists who kind of are always late to the game and late to kind of adopt a software. So in order to cross the chasm, right, there are certain things that you need. There are different kinds of things that you need to kind of address. One is satisfying a real need, and that basically this, if you remember anything from this presentation, is that you need to solve a real pain point, right? So satisfy a real need that a large number of customers will actually pay money for, and that need needs to be an actual true pain point that needs to be solved now as opposed to later. You also need to make sure like the product development practices are well established, and that you avoid never-ending product development cycles and tech debt being introduced by focusing on simplicity and the highest priority features. So no need to complicate things and add a laundry list of features to think that you're going to actually add more value proposition to your customers. Just think of what is the true pain point, focus on these pain points, and build something simplistic and with the minimum viable product or minimal set of features to address those pain points. And then on the marketing and sales front, you need to break through the clutter. Most of the early stage startups unfortunately spend a lot of money in this area, and you need to think of more creative ways. And if you don't have the actual funds to actually kind of spend in these areas, you need to kind of focus on bootstrapping, with creative kind of marketing techniques through thought leadership and content marketing, which really works in the SaaS and enterprise business, and having a very effective go-to-market strategy and identifying what that go-to-market strategy is, right? Is it a bottoms-up motion where you kind of appeal to the masses and then kind of then get to the decision makers, or are you in a very unique business where you need to kind of identify the top decision makers and kind of follow a top-down funnel, right? So you need to kind of figure that out very quickly in order to figure out like your go-to-market strategy. And then finally, it goes without saying, but customer support is extremely important, and you need to kind of go out of your way to delight customers and provide that superior support that they expect for early stage products. So how do you actually measure product market fit, right? How do you know whether you've actually reached it? And there's different schools of thought on this topic, but it ultimately boils down to traction, right? So how do you measure traction? There's the pirate metrics around acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. And acquisition is how do your users actually find you? Activation is do the users have a great first experience with your product? Retention is do the users come back and reuse the product, and how often do they actually reuse the product? Revenue is how do you actually make money? What is your kind of sales strategy there? And then referral is do users tell others to use your product, and can they refer others to your product, right? So the most important metrics to measure product market fit or before achieving product market fit is retention and revenue, right? So retention is extremely important to understand that once you have users using your product, are they sticking around? Is your product sticky enough that they're going back to your product and using it over and over again? And revenue is that are you solving a real pain point that your customers are actually willing to pay for your product, right? So if you track these two, these are really good indicators for figuring out like your path to product market fit, because you can always adjust your acquisition strategy by getting growth hackers and or just doubling down on like marketing efforts and all that stuff. But if the users are not coming back and you're not retaining these users, then all of that is for nothing, right? So what does product market fit looks like? It basically depends on the industry or on the service or on the product. These are very rough numbers, but of course it differs from one company or one product to another. On the consumer space, that you're usually looking for things like usage 3 out of every 7 days. 30% of users are active the day after sign up. Daily active users over monthly active users, more than 25%. You have some organic growth of thousands of signups or hundreds to thousands of signups per day, and you have a clear path to 100,000 daily active users, right? So this is purely focused on like the early stage startups that are they just got funding from an accelerator or like a seed funding, and they're trying to kind of accelerate growth to get to that next phase in order to prove that they found product market fit, and now they're ready to kind of get their other rounds of funding. On the SaaS products, basically it looks like 25% conversion from free to paid. So this is not 25% conversion from like actual visitors to your website to paid users. This is like anybody who actually started using your free trial. How much of the free trials are you converting to actually paid users? 80% retention for customers after 90 days. Lifetime value to cost, the customer acquisition cost ratio of 3-to-1. So you want to make sure that you're not spending too much money on customer acquisition and that you have a healthy lifetime value for your customers. And then a clear path to 100,000 monthly recurring revenue, right? And for any company in the SaaS or even in the enterprise product space, that usually, like, if you hit 1 million annual recurring revenue, that's usually good enough for you to get like your seed or Series A kind of funding. So how do you achieve product market fit, right? So it's, as I mentioned before, it's all about the pain point. So you, I believe Sequoia kind of mentioned this to some of their portfolio companies, but they kind of said that you need to find customers who have their hair on fire. So what that really means is that, you know, if you or your friend has his or her hair on fire, that at that specific point in time, that they would do anything in the world to actually just stop that fire from to basically take out that fire on their head, right? And, you know, being able to find that dire need or that dire problem or pain point is like that perfect situation where even if you had given any kind of tool, not necessarily a fire extinguisher, but even like a brick, they would be so desperate that they would just like be beating their head to basically take out that fire, right? So that's the kind of situation or pain point that you're looking for. You're looking for problems that are so bad, where users are so desperate that they are willing to try half-baked, imperfect solutions in order to address those pain points. And you also need to like build those minimum viable products and iterate on the feedback, right? So once you kind of build that imperfect, half-baked kind of solution, which could be your MVP based on like, you know, the most critical features that are needed to address the pain point. Then you keep iterating based on that feedback, and that will inform your, you know, version 2, version 3, and version 4 of your products. And you know, besides the pain point, we need to make sure that the market itself is healthy, right? That you know, there's a sufficient demand for that problem statement or for that pain point in your market, right? So you don't want to kind of find 1 or 2 people who have hair on their fire on their hair. You want to make sure that there's like a big enough market to actually address those pain points. So one way to actually identify the products or product ideas that will be promising is to apply these filters, right? And this is kind of a tool to generate ideas if you're like an early stage startup founder, or if you're a product manager interested in entrepreneurship and wanting to kind of build something on your own. So one of the key things that you need to do is, you know, as mentioned before, is address a real pain point, right? So you build painkillers, not vitamins, right? Vitamins are nice to haves, but people can't live without painkillers, right? They need to kind of address the pain in their head or whatever, right? So you start by, you know, creating a list of real pain points based on industries that you are knowledgeable about or processes that you've kind of gone through, and this is where, you know, your past experiences will, you know, come in handy based on, you know, your interactions with customers or interaction with people in different industries. You'll be able to know some of the pain points that they have. And then you apply the market size filter. So you research the market size and make sure that that basically you scratch off the ones that have too small of a market size. Then you apply the competition filter. So are you going into a space that is very crowded and that has very kind of deep pocket, kind of strong competitors that are already in that space? And you scratch off the ideas that seem to be in a very crowded space with very strong competitors. And then you apply, I think this is the most important filter in my opinion, you apply the expertise filter, right? So again, your expertise is really key here, because your expertise is gonna you know, come through when you actually come through product development and actually go to market. So you need to scratch the ideas that neither you nor anyone on your team is qualified to build, right? So this is kind of like the team idea fit, and make sure that if your entire experience is building consumer products, you're not kind of venturing out to actually build like an enterprise product or vice versa, right? And then finally, like, apply the unfair advantage filter. So scratch the ideas where you don't have an edge or something unique to actually help you stand out from the crowd, right? So again, this kind of goes back to the expertise filter, but make sure that you're addressing a real pain point and you have something unique to offer on the table. So when do you actually pivot, right? You basically pivot if you haven't really reached product market fit. So hopefully, like, by seeing these slides and understanding what it takes to actually get to product market fit, that you won't be delusional about like, oh no, we're making good progress, let's keep going right on this path. And I think this is a mistake that a lot of startup founders make, that they kind of bury their head in the sand and like not actually know that they're not moving in the right direction, right? So that's why a lot of these entrepreneurs and like venture capitalists have come up with these tools to actually help you and help you understand whether or not you're on the right track or not. And it boils down to like, are you solving a real pain point? And if you're really solving a pain point, then you should be getting that traction, right? If you're really solving a true pain point in a healthy market, then you should be getting a whole bunch of users that are and you're retaining them, and you're actually getting paid from them, right? And if not, then maybe you can examine like external factors. So maybe you've been at it for a couple of years and the market has completely changed, or the market size has changed, or maybe some really big competitors have entered the space. So all of these need to be evaluated, but ultimately your traction is a measure of whether or not you're really solving a true pain point or not. So the last slide I want to kind of cover is like a real kind of case study based on our own experience. So I was a founder a couple of years ago of a company called FX Labs, which recently rebranded to APISec.ai. And when we started the company, we sought to build a test automation platform to improve application quality and accelerate application development. And the platform basically works specifically with APIs. So we'd be able to introspect the API documentation of software applications, and then generate a bunch of tests, and then run these tests at scale, and then aggregate the results and kind of help the developers run these tests at scale and as part of like their continuous integration and development processes. And in the beginning, we thought that functional coverage was a big pain point for development teams, and we thought that okay, we will come up with a solution that's scalable, addresses their test composition and test execution problems, and it will be appealing enough for the development teams. And what we quickly found was, after kind of showing the product and having some early users on our platform, that unfortunately it's a little tricky to actually solve a quality problem for developers, because a lot of them are very opinionated about how they want to actually address quality. A lot of them want to write tests in their own programming language, as opposed to kind of using like a test composition framework that's based on like simple YAML files and things like that. And they basically have different needs for different levels of coverage for their software, right? So we came to this realization within I think 4 to 5 months into building this product. And we realized like, okay, we have this test automation platform for APIs, and what we can do is generate coverage for security. And that's when we kind of decided, okay, let's pivot, because our hypothesis at that time was like that security teams have a more dire need to actually make sure that the APIs are secure, and that security in this case is more important than quality, right? And so we kind of did a bunch of interviews with a bunch of CISOs and VPs and directors of app security, and we realized like that is indeed something that's valid. And that's when we repositioned. And so we didn't do any major re-architecture of the platform or anything like that. All we did was just invest in in a specific feature set, which is creating automatically generating the security tests to make sure that they cover like all the critical API security categories, and to help teams prevent attacks targeting the API layer, like the ones that brought down Google Plus and Facebook and others. So that was like the trajectory that we had, and luckily our hypothesis proved to be true, and we were able to reach that product market fit kind of inflection point with this new messaging and new positioning, and we were able to kind of make that a successful story at the end. So this kind of ends the presentation, and I hope this was useful, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions.